today to test the 2018 KTM range out. We've got the 2 strokes and we've got the 4 strokes. We're here on Apex, which is obviously a pristine track. Looking at the conditions, they should be spot on today. I'm looking forward to it, should be fun. What do we like about the KTM? We like how that when you're sitting on the bike, or when you sit down onto the seat and you get into the turn, that you actually it moves you forward into the centre. It's got that little bit of a slight angle, which basically makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. Does it feel like a European bike? Them questions don't really get asked no more. It still does feel a little bit different to a Jap bike. Of course it does. It's not an aluminium chassis. So it's a bike that basically now has proven itself time and time again, and it has again today. With the modifications that they've done to the bikes, minute as they may be, they have a benefit out on track. Well, the bike does feel a little bit different. You do feel like you can grip onto the bike with your knees a little bit more, and you move. There was something there which you just basically was moving a little bit different. I'm a massive fan of 2 strokes. The 250, is still it's the bike that's dialed, especially over the 125 or the 150. But the 250, that extra weight in there with the counterbalance shaft. That just makes the bike so drivable these days, and the jetting just seems, yes, maybe it's a little bit woolly, or runs a little bit rich at bottom. Personally myself, I went a little bit smaller on my main jet on my bike that I had as a long-term bike, and I'd probably do the same on the 18s. If you're a 2-stroke man, you will definitely notice that this bike is easier to ride, and obviously you can push it around the track a little bit more than what you could do on previous 250s without it biting you. We know where they stand with 125s. That's probably their best selling 2-stroke. So and there's a reason for that. It's a good bike. So that's that. It hasn't really changed too much. I've echoed this before regarding front forks, and the suspension settings are a little bit different, and you can feel those. They're good. For me, probably, but for me today, across the board, all the air forks, the pressures were too low, but I didn't adjust them, and to be fair, I could get away with riding them exactly as they was. But if it was me and I just had one bike to ride today, then that's what I would have done. I would have changed the air pressures in the front forks. I'd say the 150 is probably my favourite bike. It's just so good to ride and just so easy. Whereas on the 125 it dips down or it lags out. The 150 just pulls it. And also doing the jumps, when you're on a 125 you'll question and go, all right, okay, I've got to come out of that turn and absolutely nail it. Whereas on the 150 you just come out of there and you're going to nail the turn. You know that you're going to go for a little bit of bog, or as for today, that lump or that mound of wood chip, and it just pulls through it. As in 4 strokes, 350. I'm a fan of the 350 to be honest, and that's just because it's a bike that you can race around the track and not really too worried too much about. The 450 you can be a little bit lazier on, it makes things a lot easier, and that's just because it's so fast. Yes, it is rideable. Does it feel like a big heavy bike? No, it doesn't, to be fair. It feels good, and to be honest, I'd be undecided whether I've had a 350 or a 450. When you're in map 1, the bike does feel, it feels good, it feels fast, but over map 2, map 1 would feel a little bit strangled and just feels like it doesn't breathe as much. Whereas when you're in map 2, the bike feels a little bit lighter when you come into turns. It feels a little bit easier it feels a little bit more responsive, a little bit more easier in the turn because the revs pick up a little bit quicker, and that makes a difference out on track and makes it feel good when you come through the turns.
I rode the 450 SXF and the 350 SXF today. The power delivery on these bikes now is just absolutely amazing, and the power on the 450 is pretty much endless. The new 350 I think has a better bottom end than it's ever had before, but I mean you still need to rev it a lot more than you do a 450. You can lug the 450 around. I'm still a 450 guy, I still like power.
250 speaks for itself. Everybody wants a 250, and that's because of the horsepower that it kicks out and the way that it handles around the track, and it's proven itself now with reliability. you know the amount of hours. If you leave it in standard form, then you know that machine's a workhorse. So the 250 gets a big thumbs up. 350 would probably be the bike for me. That's just because I like to play about on the bike these days as I'm getting a little bit older. 450, yeah, if you're going racing and you're a serious racer, then why would you deny having that extra power? You'd go 450 all day long. But for me today, and the way that I like to ride, 350.